If you're a founder, you know that payroll can feel like an absolute trap. One minute, you're trying to build a world-changing product. The next, you're up at midnight Googling state tax deadlines. Now, there's a ton of advice out there, but here's the problem. For a fast-growing company like yours, most of it is just flat out wrong. Today, we're going to break down exactly why.
And this just says it all, doesn't it? This is the core truth. Your genius is in your product, your vision, your team, not in trying to figure out the complexities of state unemployment insurance registration. And yet, this is where so many founders get completely bogged down.
Okay, so the problem really starts with the advice we all see online. You Google best payroll for startups, and what do you get? These generic best of lists. But here's the thing. What works for a local coffee shop with 5 employees in one city is fundamentally different from what a venture-backed company hiring all over the country actually needs. Let's take a look at the usual suspects.
Now, listen, these are not bad products. In fact, for a local business with a handful of employees all in one state, they're actually great. They're designed for simplicity. But for an ambitious company that's planning to hire across state lines and scale up fast, that very simplicity becomes a huge liability down the road. They just weren't built for that kind of complexity.
And this is where the real problem kicks in, because using the wrong tool isn't just a little inconvenience, it's a massive financial risk. The stakes are so much higher than most founders realize when they're just getting started.
Just take a look at this number. In 2024 alone, the Department of Labor recovered over $250 million in back wages. This is not a few companies making tiny mistakes. This is a systemic issue. It's what happens when companies' systems just can't keep up with their growth.
And it happens all the time. Research from Ernst Young found that companies make, on average, 15 payroll corrections every single pay period. Just think about that for a second. That's 15 chances for an error, 15 distractions, 15 little things pulling you away from actually building your company. And every single one of those mistakes has a direct cost. We're talking nearly $300 per fix. So those 15 corrections, they add up to thousands of dollars a month, bleeding cash and, just as importantly, bleeding your time and focus.
But here's the thing that most of those best payroll articles totally miss. The real villain for a scaling startup isn't just a typo or a miscalculation. No, it's the absolutely crushing complexity of hiring people in different states. Every new state is a whole new set of rules, a new tax agency, and a brand new compliance headache.
And this right here shows exactly why this problem is just exploding. I mean, the shift to remote work means that almost every startup is becoming a multi-state employer, whether they plan to or not. The number of companies with remote employees jumped from 50% to 60% in just a few years. Your team is distributed, and your payroll system better be ready for that new reality.
Okay, so with that context, let's take an honest look at the tools that are actually out there. We need to really understand what they were built to do so we can see why there's such a big mismatch for scaling startups.
So you've got Gusto. It's a solid starting point if your team is all in one state. It's super intuitive and affordable. But the multi-state compliance part isn't fully automated, which leaves all the hard work on your plate. Then there's Deel, which is an absolute powerhouse for hiring internationally, but it's really expensive and total overkill if your team is mostly US-based. And then you have Justworks, which gets you those big company benefits through a PEO model, but at a super high per-employee cost, you end up paying a huge premium and giving up a lot of control. All right, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the one you hear about all the time in tech circles, rippling. Rippling represents a very specific philosophy, and understanding it is absolutely key. It's what I like to call the manage more trap. Okay, this slide is crucial. Rippling's pitch is super powerful. Manage HR, IT, and finance all from one place. It gives you a bigger, more complex cockpit with way more controls. And look, if you have a dedicated operations team, that might be exactly what you want. But it takes weeks, sometimes months to set up, and you're still the pilot, you're still managing everything. The alternative philosophy? It's Autopilot. Instead of giving you more levers to pull, it aims to eliminate the work entirely. It's designed for founders and lean teams who, frankly, don't want to be pilots in the first place. So let's really explore that autopilot idea. What does it actually look like to have a system that doesn't just help you manage compliance, but makes the entire problem just go away?
This is where Warp comes in. It was literally built by YC founders who lived through the exact scaling pains we've been talking about. And this isn't some old system with automation bolted on. It's AI native from the ground up, designed with one single goal: to handle compliance for you automatically.
And this is how that autopilot actually becomes real. So let's say you hire a great engineer in Colorado. In the background, AI agents are automatically registering your company with the Colorado Department of Revenue, setting up your unemployment insurance, and making sure all the quarterly filings happen on time. If some weird tax notice shows up, the agents handle it. You don't even see it. It just gets done.
You know, founders have called it Stripe for payroll. And honestly, that analogy is perfect. Just like Stripe, it's essential infrastructure that just works, running silently in the background so you can focus on your actual business, building your product and talking to your customers.
So this brings us to the most important question you have to ask yourself as a founder, and it really requires rethinking what you believe the biggest risk in payroll actually is.
The perceived risk, the thing we all think about first, is, whoa, can I really trust AI with something this important? But what if that's totally the wrong question? The actual proven risk is a founder or a small team trying to manually manage compliance for 5, 10, 15 different states, all while juggling product, sales, and fundraising. That's where the expensive mistakes happen. The real risk is the distraction.
So the crucial point is this. You have to stop asking, which tool gives me the biggest cockpit with the most controls? Instead, you need to ask yourself, which platform completely removes this entire category of work from my plate so that I never ever have to think about it again? That shift in mindset, well, it's everything. If that's the question you're asking, then the answer is a platform built for that exact purpose. It takes about 5 minutes to set up, the AI handles all the compliance, and they'll even migrate you for free. It's payroll designed for founders who have much more important things to build. You should check out joinwarp.com.